We got to get into mangoes, brother.
Sure. Let's get into mangoes.
So what are the ones you graphed? What are your favorites? Let's get into it.
So I like to break the favorites down into like the old school favorites that they've stood the test of time, and then the newer varieties, the newer hybrids that haven't been around as long but are still that are exceptional. So I don't like to become too focused on these newer hybrids because there's still old ones that are well worth people's attention and time. So like amongst the old school stuff, one of my favorites is Dot. I still love Carrie.
Carrie's great.
There's great ones like Gary, the Gary mango, which Gary Zill named back in the 60s or 70s, I guess.
Those are little too.
Yeah, they're small. And those are some old school varieties that have been around a long time, and yet they're still awesome. They're still amongst the best, right?
The Dot.
The Dot. I just did a video with Paul Neeson about the Dot, or it was one of the ones we covered, and I love the Dot mango. We have 4 of them at the farm in West Palm. So those are some great old school ones. And we have a lot of Edward trees, which is still a wonderful mango too. You know, that's been around for almost 100 years now.
In West Palm?
No, not in West Palm, but the Edward Simmons planted the seeds in the 20s. So here we are, it's 2024. He probably planted those in the mid or late 20s. So that it's a variety. As a variety, it's 100 years old. Amongst the new stuff, my favorite mango is Sweet Tart. That's one of Gary Zill's hybrids. I love orange sherbet. I love pina colada.
Sherbet.
Yeah. Orange sherbet's amazing.
And pina colada.
Yeah. There's so many. Phoenix.
Those are kind of Phoenix.
Yeah.
Is that a new one?
Yeah. It's such a long list, and we could, I could spend hours talking about them. But I have a lot of favorites now, and
I love how you have categories of your favorites. I'm like, what's your favorite? You're like, I break it down into 2 categories.
Yeah, because I want to still shine some light on the old stuff. There's people that become really obsessed with these new varieties, these candy flavors, and they won't give a second thought to a mango that's more than the variety's more than 30 years old or something,
Totally.
And there's ones that have come in between then that are great too, like CAC and Angie that got introduced, decades ago. And
so what's the problem with that? Why would you say why are you discounting these old mangoes? Is that what you'd say to them? What's so great about the Dot? And they're delicious.
Yeah, they're delicious, right? But why does it get discounted? Well, things get passed over that have a lot of merit all the time. And, sometimes they're worth keeping around, but the hype amongst something that's newer and more exciting sounding or whatever, these new varieties get cool names too. That's the other thing. It just makes it easy to kind of lose the forest for the trees, as they say. So,
and maybe, do you think it's also maybe they're not seeing it's tried and true, it's grown many seasons. Isn't that important too?
Sure, that matters. And but then there's other factors to consider for people that are trying to plant mangoes too, and that go beyond flavor and eating quality. So when people come to our nursery and ask us what mango I recommend, the first thing I ask them is, where are you located? Because something that I love, like Dot or Gary, is not a good choice for Loxahatchee or Royal Palm Beach even, or something like that. So
dude, let's talk about that. You're talking about, so you're east of 95, meaning
correct,
close to the ocean.
Very, yeah.
And a lot of mangoes do well across the board. Indian, Southeast
It's the
Asia.
best place in the United States to grow them.
Wow. Right there.
Yes,
where
right
you
there.
are.
So
wow.
And that's kind of remarkable because they start behaving differently when you go to the west side of I-95.
That's right. Inland.
Yeah. But that's not very far away from where we're located. And then
3 miles.
You go out west of 441 or the Turnpike, and they start behaving radically differently. And
Dude,
some of the varieties can't fruit out there.
So let's talk about that, because people would get all excited. Oh, I'm going to be like Alex. I'm going to go start a mango farm, put in 1,000 trees. People go and do this stuff.
They do, yes. They do.
And it's in the wrong spot.
So, yes.
What would you say to that person? Or is
I do consulting work, and I've encountered exactly what you're describing on a number of occasions. In fact, I just did a consult over in the Naples area. I guess Estero is where they're located, and they had thousands of trees, but they planted a little too much of a couple varieties, but really one variety. And what do you say to somebody like that? Because they've already made a mistake, and it's not an easy mistake to correct, right? Well, most of the time, if they have available space to plant on and they're still planning on planting more trees, I say, this is what you should plant and this is what you shouldn't plant. Beyond that, it's their horticultural care practices sometimes can be changed, but the most effective thing you can do is change varieties. And fortunately with mangoes, you can. You cut them back, you graft them over into something else. And for some people, that's a painful experience, but sometimes necessary. I've certainly done it myself plenty of times.
Yeah.
And that's usually what I tell them. Consider growing something else, another kind of mango that can resist
start
humidity.
now. Yeah,
Start yesterday.
Yeah.
The sooner you can start, the better off you'll be. It takes some years before you're getting into the full swing of production. So
it takes time, right? Yeah.
So that happens. So, I mean, a lot of people run out there and they get so excited about these things that they just plant things without taking into consideration how they're actually going to perform.
So which ones do well out west? Just to finish that thought, and then we're back to...
Yeah, the ones that do well out west, that it's just a few. The good ones, we already talked about Fairchild, but there's also Pickering. Duncan does very well out west. Glen, Valencia Pride, those are old mangoes. Valencia Pride and Glen have been around here for a long time, but they actually perform well even today out in Loxahatchee land.
Yeah,
so
they spit
there's something
fruit.
to be said about that, right?
Yeah,
even if it's not the best mango.
Every year.
Other varieties that did well out there were like Floragon. Sweet Tart does pretty well out there amongst the newer stuff. Lemon Meringue does okay. It's a longer list than that, but it's a much shorter list than what can do well when you go a little further east.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in the garden. It's existential.